Overload can be a common problem when you're autistic. I experience overload a lot, so I'd really like to figure out how to experience it less. So I'm working on making changes and trying strategies to experience overload less. And I'm going to talk about my experience of overload and what I'm doing to work on it. First though, a side note. Let me address YouTube title choices. Making a video with the title "How to Recover from Overload" feels like a big claim. And the reality is what that looks like will be different for different people. It's really just a case of experimenting and finding out what works for you. But if I titled my video, "Some Stuff I'm Trying, Let's Share Our Ideas," it would bomb. Because the algorithm really prefers a bolder claim than that. So I don't have the answers. I'm sorry. I never did, and I'm not sure that I ever will. But what I do have is a willingness to share my thoughts and my experiences, to compare notes, so to speak. Perhaps to validate your experiences in a, "oh my gosh, I'm not the only one" kind of way. And I hope that that helps. Right, that said, let's do this. As I said, I become overloaded very frequently, and after many years of this overload with very little support, I'm now in very deep burnout, where I have been for a few years now, which I would actually probably have to stop and rest to recover from. But I love my job, and I can't just stop without losing what it is that I've worked for. And I'm a parent, so I have a commitment to look after my kids and to be there for them when they need me. So for now, I need adaptations that give me some of the rest that I need whilst helping me to be able to carry on. First, what is overload and when and why does it happen? Overload is when a person has too much to cope with and they become overloaded, which is fairly obvious, I guess. For me, I imagine it like a computer, which when it's given too many tasks to do becomes really, really hot, and eventually the fan starts to really noisily whir. Eventually, if it's pushed too far, it might just shut down altogether. That's how my brain feels when I become overloaded. The most obvious too much is sensory overload. I'm sensitive to noise, light, touch and texture, and when I have to deal with too many of these things at once, then I become overloaded. Exactly what sets off sensory overload for an autistic individual is very personal to the individual. If you're not sure what does it for you, perhaps consider taking notes after you experience sensory overload of what was happening at the time so that you can play detective and try and figure it out. I also can become overloaded by emotional stuff and by having too much to do and not enough rest time. And usually for me it's a combination of all three: sensory, emotional and busyness, which overloads me and causes me to melt down or shut down. And ultimately, too much of the above for a really extended period of time is what has led me into burnout. And any too much of any of those factors can lead me to be able to tolerate less of any of those factors. For example, if I'm in a really noisy, busy place and I feel myself getting too hot and I'm trying to have an emotional conversation, then that could potentially lead me to having a meltdown. On its own, the noisy, busy environment might be just about tolerable, but if my emotions are heightened, then it becomes unbearable. Recently, I've been feeling pretty poorly. I'm in menopause, so on top of my usual symptoms associated with EDS, I'm also experiencing really regular hot flushes. Like sometimes all day, every day, and add in some extra fatigue, extra joint pain and extra anxiety, and it's really feeling like a lot right now. And this has made me more sensitive to all of my usual triggers, sensory and emotional. Honestly, I'm finding it really tough, so I'm definitely looking for ways to reduce my overload. I'm imagining myself like a camel or a horse with too many bags loaded onto my back, and I'm looking to take some of those off right now. So, where do I start? Firstly, I can address my sensory sensitivities, and this can look like initially avoiding anything that feels uncomfortable. The other part is adding in positive sensory experiences that make me feel good. So when possible, at the moment, I'm avoiding events that might be too busy or too noisy. And I'm making my home a place of comfort sensory-wise by setting up a space on my sofa with my weighted blanket, comfy pillows and fidget toys. And if I need to, I put in my earbuds or my loops to reduce the noise of my pretty noisy family. Eventually, I plan to expand on my comfy spot by redesigning my bedroom and making it a comfy, cosy place that I can go to escape to when I need that. So I have my safe space at home, but now I need to be prepared for when I have to leave the house and deal with the world. I always have my earbuds and my loops so that if it gets too noisy, I am covered. I dress in layers so that it's easier for me to find a comfortable temperature if I become too hot or too cold. And I always take a snack so that if I can't find food when I'm out and about, there's something that I can eat and I won't become hangry, because that is very much a big thing for me. And to be honest, I'm generally always prepared to leave if I need to, like if the world just feels too much. The next part is harder, finding rest and reducing my commitments. This one is so hard, and I think it's really just a case of prioritising. For me, the first priority is easy. It's Mr. Purple, my children and my animals. I want to be present and engaged in my children's lives, and there are practical things that I need to do for them as well. Next is my work as a content creator and advocate, and even within that category I need to prioritise. And I recognise that work that has me leaving the house or speaking live in front of an audience is really taking a lot out of me right now. So I choose to prioritise content creation and consultancy, and to stop taking jobs which are public speaking or delivering webinars. I still have a few commitments in that area that I have to fulfill, but after that I'm really just going to be doing consultancy and content creation. The final block of commitments for me is social stuff. And for now, anything other than chilling out with my closest friends just isn't possible. In terms of emotional overload, this one's trickier to manage. I'm trying to pay attention to the things that trigger me emotionally and the things that make me feel good, so that I can reduce the former and increase the latter. So no to phone calls, but yes to cups of tea, and so on. Basically, I think the key to reducing overload is to look at your particular circumstance and what you can do to prioritise and let go of some of that stuff. Taking care of your sensory needs and making your day-to-day life manageable with lots of time for rest. Because being neurodivergent is exhausting at times. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please do all the things, like, subscribe and consider supporting me as a creator by looking at my members club or clicking on my link tree. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.